What's up, Copy Squad? It's your boy Kyle Milligan coming to you live from Delray Beach, Florida. And today I want to talk about your daily routine, making 1% improvements, and compounding knowledge. And this is all tied together into basically what I've been doing over the past, I'd say, month now. Is I've been basically hoarding all this knowledge and learning how to do all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's all kind of coming to a head. And I want to start way back in 2000 and probably 12 or 13. This is where it all began, where I read this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And back in the day, that was my Bible. Basically what it preaches is focus on one thing, and that's like the that's like the key to extraordinary results and success. It's going to open up the whole world to you. And I really bought into that message, and I was a big disciple of that for a long time. One of the things that I took from that book was this study about willpower. And essentially, the idea is you have a finite, it's like a battery, right? You have like a finite amount of willpower every single day. And what I took away from that is basically you have your full battery when you wake up, and as you make decisions throughout the day, every time you make a decision, it takes willpower. But every time you opt to not act on some sort of temptation, that drains willpower too. So for instance, for me, I decided that the smart thing to do was to automate all my decisions as frequently as possible. I decided to do that probably 6 or 7 years ago. And I'm going to tell you, basically these are like success habits that I've developed, and as I keep compounding my knowledge, I keep seeing these things appear in different iterations across a bunch of different success and self-improvement and productivity books. These lessons keep reappearing with different words, with different authors, like in every single book that I read, and just put in a different way. So the first thing that I thought or found was I read that book way back in the day. I loved it, totally changed my life. I was like, wow, I've been trying to do everything, I need to do one thing. And that kind of got me on this path of copywriting when I committed to copywriting. This is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to be about. That's a lot of that had to do with that. And then inside that book, they talk about this willpower gauge. Okay, so for me, when I realized that every time I make a decision, it drains my finite storage of willpower, I said, screw it, I'm not making any more decisions. I need to automate all decisions in my life. And I also need to automate out of my life any things that cause me to have to make a decision. So for instance, if I love Oreo cookies, which I do, and I love chocolate chip cookies, which I also do, but I don't want to be tempted by chocolate chip cookies and Oreo cookies, they will not be in a neat little bowl right there on my counter where I can reach them every morning, or I will eat them all. As a matter of fact, get them out of my house, because then I will open the cabinet sometimes and be like, oh, there's those Oreo cookies. I don't want them, but I do want them. And he said, then I gotta deal with that. That's a willpower drain. So I said, you know what? No more Oreo cookies in the house. And then I started thinking about how I can optimize my decision making into a completely automated process where I don't make any decisions. And what I found was basically coming up with a routine. So the more routine and scheduled and I want to say rigid you can make sort of like your scheduling process, the fewer decisions you'll be forced to make. And that's better, because doing your work is actually a really difficult thing to do, because you're constantly being pulled in a million and one direction. Like as soon as you sit down to write, you're going to be pulled in 15 billion different directions to do 15 billion other things that you don't necessarily they don't help you do your work. They're stuff like, I should go fold the laundry if you work from home. I should go vacuum, or I should tidy up the living room. All these things all of a sudden become like immensely important as soon as you start to do some work. So it takes a lot of willpower to basically say, shut up voices telling me to go do stuff that isn't important, shut up and go away. You have to save all that willpower. So that's why I say, it's really important. Like I think the first couple hours of your day need to be extremely regimented, okay? And something, just before I forget, while it's on the top of my head, there's a book I want to talk about called Atomic Habits about this, but essentially never miss twice is what he says in that book. Never miss twice. Like missing your routine or whatever one day is like a mistake or like a one-off. Missing it twice is the formation of a new habit. And once you miss twice, like that, that's it. That's all it takes. And all of a sudden, you're not missing your old habit. You're actually developing a completely new habit, and it might not be the kind of habit that you want to develop. So all that to say, I took some notes trying to structure this a little bit. I've shared this advice with other people, and sometimes I struggle to follow it myself, but I can tell you, like, one of the smartest things you can do is get to the hard work. That's another thing. I do the gym first thing in the morning, and then I try to get straight into writing as quickly as possible. So I preach, like, The One Thing by Gary Keller. You got a finite amount of willpower to knock out the hardest, or automate as many decisions as you can first thing in the morning, get into a structured routine where you're not doing any thinking and you have no distractions. I knock out the gym, get straight to writing. I try not to check my phone if I can avoid it at any sort of way. Sometimes messages pop up and they get me, and then they end up being on my brain, and I gotta fight that thought off and get it out of there, okay? The next thing, I want to kind of transition from this to this book I was talking about called Atomic Habits. And one of the things that he says in this book, he talks about how to create basically great self-discipline, or people who have amazing self-discipline, who experience amazing success and get really far in life, and how they're able to achieve all this greatness. He says this of people with great self-discipline is the people with the best self-discipline never have to exercise self-discipline. Again, that's like the exact same thing that I was talking about, automating decisions. What he's saying is like you are a product of your environment. If your environment is forcing you to be like constantly making stressful decisions, or not able to sit down and, for instance, do your work, or if it's full of distractions or whatever, then you're not going to be able to you're not going to have a focused craft kind of career. Essentially, you need to do what I was talking about. For me, I read one thing. I said, okay, I'll automate decisions. For him, he's saying optimize your environment, which is very similar. Like, go ahead, if you want to go to the gym in the morning, go ahead and lay out your clothes. Like, go ahead and have like your gym shorts and your socks and like everything. Get it all out there. If you want to make coffee in the morning or something, have like your cup and your bag of coffee like right there. Like, basically make it as easy as possible to do the things that you need to do and optimize your environment. So it's basically low investment of your energy to do like your basic day-to-day things so that you can focus essentially on your craft, right? He doesn't really talk about your craft per se in the book Atomic Habits. He's mostly talking about how to form habits. And essentially, like, I think what I'm really starting to see as I get more access to people online through this channel, like people who are really successful, people who have like online businesses, online marketing, YouTubes, these people are regular people. I think that's what's really eye-opening to me is, wait a minute, when I meet them or speak to them, it's like, wait, you say, what up, bruh? Like, you're just a regular dude. Like, you are a normal person. You're not, I mean, they're smart, they're hardworking, but they're not, like, brilliant. You know, there's very few Einsteins in the world. Really what they are they are a bundle of habits. And, like, I could get a little woo-woo about this. I've started to think of myself like this. Like, this is going to sound kind of like, yeah, like weird spiritual stuff. This is a shell. This is a body that I occupy. And what is I am just a bundle of habits. Because if you look at who I was 2 years ago, it's definitely not the same person I am today. All that's changed from then to now is what I work on every day. Every day now, I focus on my craft. I focus on improving my abilities in the sphere of copywriting. I focus on marketing. I focus on growing my YouTube and my channel. And every day, like, I sit down, now I'm trying to create more habits that will push me forward into a general direction. Like, I think that's something that's really important that he says in Atomic Habits. This is something I forgot to write down, but I want to talk about it. He says goals are basically worthless. And the reason goals are worthless is because, like, what good are goals if they have no real correlation with success? And the reason that I can say that, and the reason that he gives in the book, is think about goals. Everybody has a goal to, let's say, all right, if you're playing football, right? Let's say the NFL, right? All the teams have a goal to win the Super Bowl, but only one team wins the Super Bowl. So if your goal is what creates success, right? Then that doesn't make any sense, because that would mean so all the teams in the NFL would achieve the goal of the Super Bowl. It isn't the goal that drives you there. It's the actions, the processes, the habits that drive you there. And then you basically try to figure out what things you do every day that get you there. I've said this before, that success is not something we go get. Success is a byproduct of a couple different actions that we take every day. And this becomes like the 4 green houses, 1 red hotel concept I talked about when I did a whole video about people need to respect small victories or they're never going to be successful. Because you can't just go buy, if you play Monopoly, if you're playing the board game Monopoly, you can't just buy a red hotel. That's not how the game is played. Instead, you buy 4 green houses, okay? And it is the process of buying 4 green houses that allows you to trade up to a red hotel. And I basically use that as a metaphor for success. Again, this is just another way of saying the same thing in a different way that everyone always says. They always say, fall in love with the process. And that's what that means is, again, it's about, you got to fall in love with buying green houses. You can't, like, having the red hotel is a great goal to have, right? But you got to fall in love with getting the 4 greenhouses. Actually, you gotta fall in love with getting 1 greenhouse, because in order to get 4, you had to love getting 1, and then you can get 2 because it's just 1 more, and then just 1 more, and then just 1 more. Next thing you know, you got 4 greenhouses, and you trade up to that red hotel. Okay, and at the base of all this starts with optimizing your environment, optimizing and automating as many decisions as humanly possible so you don't have to think, so that when you can sit down in your chair and do the very difficult task of doing the work, then you don't have those things bothering you, okay? Another one of my very important book recommendations that I shout out all the time is Deep Work by Cal Newport. In Deep Work, he's basically like, look, you've got to be able to block off your brain. You can't have what he calls attention residue, where there's other things that you were thinking about, like pinging at your brain all the time, like this message you read from, I don't read messages as soon as I wake up. I don't check my emails. I try to avoid all that stuff because that stuff's going to be in the back of my head. Like, what did that guy send me? Like, do I have to get that email back to him? What about that Slack message? Am I going to have to? No, you have to have all your attention focused to do deep work, right? And again, that comes back to optimizing your environment, right? And then putting in like the correct habits, and achieving mastery is a function of how many, not how long. And that comes down to falling in love with that process. So if you fall in love with the result, this is something I talked about in like the pro versus amateur video like 2 days ago. If you fall in love with the result, you're never going to be happy, and because basically you're going to get the result, you'll be happy for like the 4 minutes that the result is there, and then what do you do now, right? So if you fall in love with the process, and again, this sounds so cliche, but for whatever reason, it's just kind of dawning on me, after 10 years of hearing it. If you fall in love with that, then every day when you're working, you're happy. Okay? All right. Thanks so much, guys. I do appreciate you. Peace out, Copy Squad.